Hi. Well, we're live again. And the great thing is you get to meet all these amazing people I know from around the world who's changing the world and have been, in some cases, for a very long time, and others are new at it. If we're going to solve the problem of sex crimes against children and facilitated crimes against children online, we need to make sure that we have all of the stakeholders and we build a safer ecosystem. So we've talked to mental health professionals. We've talked to the privacy commissioner in New Zealand. We've talked to people about some of the new things we're seeing in legislation before Congress, and teachers and school administrators and law enforcement, lots of different people, even a mom who lost her daughter to a digital torment where she had been raped and somebody took a video of the rape and then posted it online. But now there's somebody I've been waiting for all day. His name is Paul Rockwell, and I'm going to bring him in live, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. So I love LinkedIn. I started using it a number of years ago when somebody who was then employed by LinkedIn came to me saying, you need to help advise them on policy. She brought me in and I started looking at everything, and I was caught. It was a place where I knew who other people were most of the time, and it allowed me to meet people who would help me accomplish my mission to make sure that the world is safer and more empowered online. And over the years, I have been very grateful for Paul Rockwell's help and what he's done on trust and safety within LinkedIn. So, Paul, tell everybody what it means to run trust and safety at LinkedIn.
A little bit of herding cats. It's amazing. We keep the platform safe, clean, and maintain our members' trust through a series of efforts that really ensure that, as you said, Parry, when you reach out to somebody, you have a high degree of confidence that they are who they say they are, and the interaction is going to be constructive and, again, aligned with your expectations.
And, it really is. And I started using it, and I have about 25,000 followers and connections that I keep at that level. I don't want to get up over 30,000 so they're just followers, not connections anymore. And every once in a while, I go in and get rid of some people who are pain in the necks and bring in some people who I like more. But it enabled me to create Cyber Safety India. So I was invited to India to speak at an event, who knew, 3 million people in person, Paul, in Delhi, run by Art of Living. And I had no idea what to do. And I found out that there were some cyber safety concerns in India. So I said, well, what's the group? We'll help them, because we've been doing it worldwide for 25 years. Turns out there wasn't one. So I turned to LinkedIn and searched for people in India and created a board and a charity in India to address this issue that's incredibly powerful because of the network and because you keep it as clean as I think we're going to be able to keep it without doing DNA testing on everybody when they're starting. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I think you're doing a great job. And there's some other trust and safety people who are, but I think far more of them are just winging it. And they're bringing in companies that can moderate cheaply, and it's not good for their mental health. It's not good on quality control. Nobody's triaging. Nobody is supervising. Nobody's training. There's lack of consistency. If something goes before one person on the team, they're going to get an up or down that's different from another member of the team. So how do you keep it all going? How do you recommend that others can?
I will start by saying this is an incredibly tough space. And I don't think anybody's got all the answers. I think a lot of our peer companies are doing a commendable job trying to make this work. And a lot of the environments aren't as clear cut as what you see with LinkedIn. With LinkedIn, there's an expectation that who you see is that individual, and you are going to have an interaction that's professional in nature. So the spectrum of possibilities is narrowed down to professional interactions, which is fantastic for the purposes of LinkedIn. The other platforms, they don't necessarily have those constraints, which means the challenge space is so dramatically different that you really have to invest and experiment with things to see what works for each platform. And for us, in the content moderation space especially, it's a heavy investment in wellness. And it's an ongoing learning around what can we do to ensure the folks that are doing this work are able to bounce back and have the resiliency needed to really continue to do this and work with us for a long period of time. And when we started, we were trying to better understand what are some of the ways that we can make sure that folks are set up for success. And we deliberately put our contractors with our FTE. We made sure that they were in the same facilities, they had the same access to different facilities and the food and all of those things, so that, again, you had folks that were experienced and tenured sitting next to some of the newer folks, learning the ropes and really teaching and growing that experience in a way that really has fostered a very, very positive dynamic between the elements of the team, and have helped us really hone in on problem areas with content, surface trends, and build a team that is resilient, and build a team that is stronger because of the work that they do together. So.
Yeah, and part of the secret to that is not being virtual, making sure that they are sitting next to someone, that somebody's around and can watch and see what's going on. And that was one of the first rules we set up when we were 16,000 volunteers at our very first iteration in 1995, looking at things. And we had psychiatrist volunteers and counselor and therapist volunteers who would work with all of my volunteers who were dealing with child abuse materials that we were finding and reporting around the world, to debrief them. We had somebody who was undercover with the National Crime Squad in the UK that was actually created to handle investigations involving him, where he was undercover with child sex trafficking groups. And there was a special psychiatrist once a week who would debrief him and work with him so that he could handle this. And a lot of the big networks are getting into trouble. And I've never heard anything bad about the mental health and wellness and the priorities you're giving to your staff. So I think that that's wonderful.
And mental health and wellness go hand in hand, right? I'm not a psychologist, but we definitely have seen the impact of providing folks with the abilities to stay well and working with them in a capacity that allows them to surface things in a non-threatening environment, say, I need to change roles. This is too tough. I cannot do this. And have the support of LinkedIn to ensure that they are moved to something that is more aligned with their needs and the journey that they're on. Because everybody does have their own journey and their own path. So recognizing that and making sure that it was a priority has really helped that team achieve some excellent results.
You know, we've been asked to consider putting together a trade association, in effect, for those in trust and safety to help train and certify newcomers and do professional development for people involved. Would that be helpful at all?
It's an interesting thought, and happy to take it offline and learn a little bit more about what it is that you guys are looking to put together. There's a couple that are out there right now, and we're continuing to invest our time and energy in some of the ones that are there, but definitely welcome the opportunity for us to explore it a little bit more.
Great. We're working with the IEEE to look at standards, and that might be good places to make sure that you can help people understand the kind of policy standards and doing things right and thinking about it. And, I consider you the gold standard. I say that all the time. And came from the very early days when I showed up on campus at the invitation of somebody who used to be there. And we sat down and you looked at me like, who is this? Who is this woman? She's a cyber lawyer and she runs a charity and she's doing cyberbullying. And I watched your face, and over the years, I've watched how your talent and passion and how you've matured into the role. And now I really don't know of anybody who does the job as well as you do. And so I wanted you to know that.
I appreciate that. And I think all the credit goes to the teams at LinkedIn. Like, these guys work tirelessly to keep the platform safe, clean, and our members safe too. There's a number of threats that pop up on the LinkedIn platform, and they are very quick to action it and put in systems that help us scale. Back, 8 years ago when first got introduced, the world was a different place, and
Yeah.
LinkedIn, was admittedly smaller. And as we've grown and developed, there's been a lot of learnings that we've had along the way. And candidly, a lot of our peers have been instrumental in helping ensure that we take some of the learnings that they've had and some of the challenges they faced, and we interact with our industry peers consistently, because this is one of the things that we've learned early on is rising tide lifts all boats. The ability to share your experiences and share some of those hard learned lessons definitely helps everybody else out. So I just want to say, like, everybody is struggling in this space, and everybody is really trying to do the best they possibly can. And it's great that we're at a time like this where we can have such incredible talent working on these problems.
Yeah, and hopefully more. We're talking to an AI expert tomorrow who's going to be talking about some of the things he's seeing that maybe could be used here. And having Microsoft behind you is not a bad thing.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, there's some people I really trust at Microsoft, and I hope they'll stay around a little bit longer. I'm hearing they may not, but there are very few giants in the space that I trust. And Microsoft is one of those. And I remember I started working in 1996 with them, and I met Bill Gates, and I was doing the first cyber safety presentation ever. Microsoft had brought me in to do something local, and in Redmond, and he turned to me. We turned to the woman who brought me in, Pam, and said, "Can I own cyber safety?" And she said, "No." And I said, "No, it's protecting everybody. Lift all boats, that thing." And he just said, "Well, I'm not doing it." And that was when he was a baby and young and hadn't learned that leading the pack was so valuable. And I watched as he's matured too, and it's made a difference in the company.
For sure.
So when
And
you're old enough, you can comment on Bill Gates. Who knew?
yes, and look, Satya and Brad and the team there have radically transformed Microsoft and helped continue that evolution in an incredible way. I mean, the journey has been fantastic, and they're amazing folks to work with. So
Yeah,
very
and Brad
delighted.
and Satya are just, I put them on
Incredible.
pedestals. So I've got some
Absolutely.
awards for them one of these days if I ever get back out there. When Brendan
Great.
left and went over to Airbnb, it's like, wait a minute, I'm not allowed on campus anymore. So what has been your biggest challenge, do you think? Not necessarily on something specific at LinkedIn, but as running trust and safety, what's your biggest challenge?
Oh, I would say one of the things that we've constantly been faced with is the talent shortage. There's a lot of really brilliant people out there, but I think over the last 8 years that I've been at LinkedIn, it's been finding folks that have the experience, building that up, and really growing them into roles. But from the outside, trying to see if you can land top talent immediately. It's been a race. Candidly, everybody is looking for this talent, and it has been fantastic to see such a focus on trust and safety. I think we're all everybody in the space sees this as a huge recognition for all the behind the scenes work that's happened all these years. But trying to find a lot of seasoned talent that are ready to move isn't as easy as it used to be. And so a lot of exploration now into how do we generate new pipelines of talent? How do we take folks from zero and get them to one, and make sure that we can really provide that level of detailed foundational experience and introduce them to policies and some of the challenges in the various elements of trust and safety, from payments fraud to content moderation. How do we make sure that there's a full solid foundation from which they can operate, and then figure out from there, like, is there a way to certify, or how do we get a higher degree of confidence coming out of some of these candidates? So I think talent has always been a top priority for us, but it's definitely a new set of challenges in this world that we're currently in.
Yeah, and I think there might be some millennials that aren't responding well to more traditional job formats that care enough. And I find that the one thing that's the most important is caring and following rules. It's interesting how you need to stay within them. And anytime something's gone wrong, and I live not on LinkedIn, luckily, but I live with ongoing death threats all the time. And whether it's the RCMP or the FBI or people I know around the world in law enforcement who keep an eye on me, I've been swatted and had my house surrounded by SWAT teams and my cat tear gassed. Luckily, I was out of the country at the time. So having someone is there, responsive, and cares has been
Yeah.
very comforting to me. I can reach out to you, and it's not just because we know each other. I can reach out to you in the middle of the night saying, I just saw this, something's wrong. And you are there. You're there with me, and you've got somebody on it right away. If you report something, it is down within a heartbeat, as opposed to 3 weeks while people argue over it. And I watched when some women were concerned about issues and some creepy communications, and were worried about what's going on the network. And you stepped in. You just went right into the post and said, I'm here. Here's my email address. Here's my
Yep.
cell number. Here's my firstborn child. And then the next thing you know, you were there and solving it. And that is crucial. That's what makes you very different.
Thank you.
So,
And yeah, again, there's a lot of amazing people behind the scenes. One of my key partners, Madhu Gupta, is director of Trust Product, and she's helping build solutions. We've got Janelle Bray, who's leading our AI team that's trying to detect some of this, and partner Rushi Bhatt, who's also in AI, trying to help us with detection of harassment and other bad content. So we've got an amazing team, and the operators inside of Trust and Safety too that are looking for the content, pulling it down. LinkedIn is a members first organization, and I think one of the things that has really helped us is that sense of value and clarity of our ethos is just crystal clear. This is what we're about. We're a professional network, and we're members first. And if our members are having problems, we're there to literally try and figure it out and solve it and prevent it from happening again if at all possible.
well, it shows. And you're a subscription based service. So many people use it for free. But I think, I don't know what the numbers are. I think many of us are paid subscribers. And if you start failing us on keeping us safe and making us feel secure, we're gone. And it really makes a big difference. I remember when when you used to have influencers and everybody wanted to be an influencer, and I thought I was an influencer because it was LinkedIn.com/IN, which I was absolutely convinced meant influencer as opposed to individual. So I was very excited. I said, I'm an influencer. Like, no, you're not. You're just a paid subscriber. But I think as it grows, we're starting to get a sense of what's going to be okay and what's not on LinkedIn as the users are starting to set those norms. So we're shutting down political fights and rants and people calling each other names and making fun of each other because of their height or weight or color or accent or whatever they are. And I think the group is turning around saying, this is the place we like to hang out. And for that to happen, everybody needs to behave properly. And I think we'll probably get there.
Yeah, and again, hate speech not tolerated. Ad hominem attacks not tolerated. And it's inflammatory speech around sensitive topics doesn't lend itself to a constructive path through which we engage in a dialogue that actually helps move us all forward. I think that's one of the really amazing things about LinkedIn is it's a professional environment, and so treating others and speaking to others in a way that you would in a professional environment is kind of the standard, the norm. And we do have folks that deviate from that, but it's a fairly easy nudge from us to help correct that. And by and large, we see the community doing a fantastic job in self-policing and saying, this isn't okay. This isn't okay behavior. We need to turn this around. So.
And it's one of the few networks where that I'm not officially policing, where we can come in and reach out to somebody privately saying, I think you crossed a line, and not worry that they're going to come gunning for you. And I think that's great. I know, I make a choice sometimes whether I reach out to the person, whether I just watch and moderate my own feeds by deleting their comments, or whether I block them or reach out and report them to you. And we have those choices.
Yeah.
So what can people like me and people in the field who are dealing with safety, privacy, security, responsible use, proper use of socialization online, what can we do to make your job easier?
First and foremost, I'd say flag content that's not appropriate for the platform. We're constantly working on enhancing and building that system out. Let us know if something is there and isn't appropriate. We definitely review flags, and we're constantly investing in that whole experience. So please do flag things that aren't appropriate. And again, as you've seen me do quite a while, I'm happy to share my email address, paul@linkedin.com. Feel free to tag me in a post. Let me know if something's going wrong. We will absolutely look into it. Otherwise, the community policing and just, hey, this doesn't seem like it's constructive or helping us maintain a professional atmosphere. That little bit definitely goes a long way. It shows that I'm uncomfortable, and I would appreciate if we all showed some respect. So little things like that go a long way.
And when some of the women were talking about things, I said, "Have you reported it?" And they were like, "No, because we don't think anything's going to happen." And I said, "Nothing may happen at some of the other networks, but something always happens here." So we need to teach people what to flag and what to look for. We need to teach them more about your rules, and not just terms of service that nobody reads, but sort of codes of conduct. And I think we need to work on some of the reasons that things are being flagged, because I think they're saying, well, is it this one or is it that one? But that's just making it easier. And I think we need to reach out and say, you want a nicer place, you have to help clean up after others. Yep.
Yeah. And so on our part, clarity of what those rules are is absolutely important. Consistency in enforcing them is also important. And then providing our members with control so that they can protect themselves, or they can take action to give themselves a higher degree of safety and security. So clarity, consistency, and control are absolutely fundamental to the trust that we're trying to build with and maintain with our members. So.
Well, now in the age of Corona, where people are working virtually and schools are closed, and you can't eat out in restaurants, and my health club just sent me a notice that they're shut down. People are going to be turning to you more and more. And I've noticed two things. Number one, a lot of the people who used to be online all the time during the day aren't right now, because I think they're working from home and it's not on their employer's dime. It is, but it doesn't quite feel that way. So they might play with their dogs or raid the refrigerator instead of going onto LinkedIn for fun. And we elected to, I've been talking to you about this event we were doing at Princeton University on crimes against children and best practices and what we need to do to make sure that law enforcement can talk to the trust and safety people, and the trust and safety people can talk to law enforcement. And we decided to go online in like 2 weeks. So that's why I'm getting all the time zones screwed up. And we moved hours today, but we're doing it entirely on LinkedIn Live, where we have people coming in from all over the world sharing experience. And then we can archive those videos so people can go back and learn and turn it into something that's more structured. And so as people turn to you as one of the trustworthy, and perhaps the only trustworthy network for these kind of events and interactions, have you thought about Corona and how it's affecting what's happening on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say across the company, teams have been working together to try and ensure that not only is the information that you're seeing trusted, but we're able to really curate some of the most trusted news sources. And our editorial team's done an amazing job in helping funnel that directly into certain areas of the platform, so that in the daily rundown, you've got trusted information about coronavirus. There's a section, if you're on the desktop, it'll show you another trusted set of sources that are likely relevant to you based on your location. So we're continually doing that. We're also looking for misinformation. We've got systems that are set up looking for that. And our content reviewers are looking at those hits, making sure that if we see something, we take action immediately. So both on the proactive side, trying to provide real information, trusted information, and then on the back end, anything that we see that gets identified as potentially misinformation, quickly responding to that.
So do you have any special tips for smaller newcomers or people who are still fumbling with how they do this on how to engage with law enforcement when they either come to you or you need to go to them?
So there's a couple of different capacities. So when you're saying smaller, like as in smaller businesses that need
Yeah.
to engage with, yeah. So I would say if you feel like there's a issue, I would engage sooner than later, definitely. And look, if you're in the United States or you're dealing with a adversary in the United States, excuse me, the FBI is a great resource. Definitely an organization that wants to keep things safe. So reaching out to them early and documenting the nature of what you're dealing with. And again, treat it as a way of partnering to solve a problem. I think that's definitely a positive way of approaching it. In Europe, similarly, they have federal or nationwide police forces or a federal type system. Definitely helpful there. Same with Australia and others. So again, engage early and be very clear, and just try and make sure that you've got a good line of communication open, because that communication is really what helps move the needle when it comes to crimes involving your business.
So when you deal with them, I remember, I don't even know how many years ago, when I helped write AOL's Law Enforcement Investigators Guide that we then turned into MySpace and Facebooks and everybody else's over the years. The more you can let law enforcement know about the kind of information you have and what it's going to take if they need access to it, a subpoena, court order, warrant, they're not going to get access to it, whatever it is, make their lives easier in the event there's an emergent, exigent case and something's coming up and they need to reach out. Having that clarity, which is something you guys do very well. And it's not even based on mine. So I turned around, I was like, all these were plagiarized, and it looks like LinkedIn wrote their own. So when it doesn't reference MySpace, you know it's something new. And I think that makes a big difference. When I talk to law enforcement for all over the world, they all speak highly of engaging, of course, with Microsoft, but with LinkedIn. And they turn around and say, well, they're good guys. They know what they're talking about. They never mess with our head, and they care about users. So that makes a difference.
Absolutely. And again, as a members first organization, we have to put our members' interests first in every decision that we're making. And that does include issues with law enforcement. And we are very clear with law enforcement. It's a positive relationship because we set we're working and we have a law enforcement guide, and we let them know there is a legal process that's required if we're going to be providing things. So again, our transparency report has continued to grow and evolve to reflect the relation. I don't even know if I would call it a relationship, just the dynamic between law enforcement organizations and LinkedIn, because sometimes it is really just serve a subpoena, search warrant, et cetera, and there's a response. But it definitely helps to maintain that very clear and consistent approach when you're dealing with law enforcement.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and I promised you I wouldn't take you over a half hour, and we're there. But Paul, anything I can do to help wherever I am in the world. Right now I'm locked down without any toilet paper in New Jersey, but you can reach out. You can find me. The place means a great deal to me because it's a way for me to connect as I get older and have a million things I'm doing with the people who matter. Very easily. And it's the old Counsel Connect that was out before you were born, that Steve Brill from the American Lawyer and Court TV created to get lawyers together. And it's something that we really haven't seen until this started growing. And I think it's wonderful. I love what it's become. I'm happy to be part of it. And I like it a lot more than I would have if you hadn't been there.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out.
Okay, well, I could use $100 and some toilet paper, but aside from that, I know Corona is a very serious thing, and we understand all the issues, and but I don't understand why we're preparing for blizzards. Bottled water and toilet paper is what we do in Canada when the house is under snow. I don't understand why we're doing that, but we're people, and
Yep.
Hopefully, I'll get out there and see you soon, and you can come visit me at the place in Prince Edward Island and all of the things we're going to be doing that's fun once we're allowed to get out again.
There you go. All right, Perry. Take care. Thank you.
Stay well. Bye bye.